Hey, what's up, y'all? David here from UIUC. I'm just here to talk about what the big deal is with blue light. So, you've probably heard a thing or two about blue light. Unless you've been living under a rock, someone has probably tried to convince you that blue light is bad and we should eliminate screen time. And you say to yourself, as a engineering or computer science student, what does that even mean and what is the science behind it? So blue light is the part of the visible spectrum generally considered to be between 400 and 500 nanometers in wavelength. And that's the spectrum that we're going to talk about today. So we're looking at the shortest end of the visible light spectrum in terms of wavelength, which means highest level of frequency. So as we know from our study of physics, the higher the frequency, the shorter the wavelength, and the higher the energy of the wave. So all that being said, why do we care? Well, the short answer is screens. And for whatever reason, backlights in LCD and LED technology account for most of the blue light exposure that we get after dark. So we've probably all been in this situation where we're burning the midnight oil, metaphorically speaking, of course, and pulling an all-nighter, working on a research project or a coding question that we just can't seem to get right, grinding on leak code, and staring at a screen all in the process, completely unfiltered, well after our normal exposure to blue light would happen in nature. And then what do we do when we're done? On the weekends, we'll go ahead and watch some Netflix, maybe catch the latest episode of Loki while we scroll through Reddit. So you probably get where I'm going with this, but sunlight is our only exposure to blue light in nature. And basically what we're doing is signaling to our bodies that the day hasn't ended and the sun is still out, so we should still be awake. You can pretty much count on sunlight, even though it looks yellow from most perspectives, to be the greatest source of blue light that you get. And that's actually a good thing. It helps us wake up in the morning. If you've ever woken up outside, maybe during a camping trip, you know it's pretty hard to stay asleep once first light hits your tent. And there turns out there's a biological reason for that. So if we look at our wake and sleep circadian rhythm cycles, pretty much when we wake up or when the sun rises, depending on your time zone, it's generally between 6 and 8 a.m. Around that time that you're getting up, between 6 and 8 in the morning, your cortisol is going to spike, body temperature will drop, and your melatonin production will essentially shut off for most of the day. Then, conversely, as the sun is setting, your cortisol levels will start to drop off, and melatonin production, in the ideal case at least, will start to increase endogenously as you prepare for bed. However, when we're exposed to high levels of blue light after dark, we're essentially throwing off that cycle and stopping the natural production of melatonin, which makes you feel sleepy. Basically tricking your eyes and your body into thinking that the sun is still out. So what this does is it triggers the suppression of natural melatonin production in favor of cortisol. And we only recently have figured out what that mechanism looks like. So why might this be? The answer is melanopsin. And it's a relatively recent discovery, actually only isolated in the late 1990s. And so this is very sort of cutting edge science in terms of the human body and light sensitivity. The receptors that respond to blue light are primarily in the peripheral vision of the eye and the retina. But the protein itself, melanopsin, actually exists throughout the brain's neural bodies. Turns out that melanopsin is most stimulated by wavelengths of around 480 nanometers, which is right in the middle of the blue light spectrum we talked about, and pretty close to what we consider true blue. As the counterpart to melatonin, which was discovered in the early 20th century, turns out it's not just a supplement that you take when you're having trouble sleeping. It's actually a potent hormone and one of the most potent antioxidants in the body. Light of any kind can suppress melatonin, but blue light in particular is twice as powerful as the next highest color, which would be green. So what can we do about it? Well, if you're like me, your first instinct was to buy some really cheap blue light blocking glasses from Amazon and call it a day in your favorite color. Turns out these don't really block out much of the blue light spectrum and aren't a really good use of your money unless you want some fashion glasses for your next Twitch stream. Your next best option would be night shift function on your iPhone, which is now built into, I believe, both iOS and Android devices to change the color temperature of your screen. That's a great option. In addition, for your computer, if you're burning the midnight oil on another C++ or Java project, you can go ahead and install Flux, which I'll link in the description. Is a free program that does pretty much the same thing as Night Shift if your computer or operating system doesn't already handle it natively. Next level up, and this is one of the things that really got my gears turning about the subject, is to turn your iPhone screen red. And this is actually an accessibility function that I learned about via Blue Blocks. And turns out it's really great at the bar, the movie theater, if you're trying to send a text and don't want to be a jerk and grab everyone's attention when they're trying to watch the new Dune movie. Next up is going to be Iris Pro, which basically is like Flux on steroids and allows a lot more customizability and eliminates almost all of the blue light emanating from your monitor. Furthermore, the next level of blue light blocking glasses are going to be deep red tinted, and these will eliminate almost all of the blue and green spectrum of light, so it can allow you the best sleep possible and minimal disruption to your circadian rhythms. Plus, you look really cool. Personally, I've used the Raw Optics brand, and honestly, it's kind of changed my life for the better. My night owl tendencies have really scaled back, and instead of starting to feel tired at 12:30 or 1 in the morning, I'm more likely, if I'm wearing these, to be winding down around 9 or 10 p.m. at a much more reasonable hour. To make a long story short, blue light exposure is really not likely to make you go blind or anything like that, but it does impact a significant part of our circadian rhythms, and I just suggest you try it out. Thanks everyone for watching. You can find links in the description. Don't forget to smash that like button. Take care, y'all.